The auction block. The chains on her wrists were cold, too tight, too heavy. The alien girl stood on the auction block, her skin pale under the bright market lights. She didn't cry. She had learned long ago that tears brought more pain. And the slavers liked pain. They called her Lot 74. Nothing more, no name. Just a number. Crowds of aliens filled the dark hall, shouting bids, laughing, pointing. Most of them were tall, scaly, or covered in strange armor. But all of them looked at her the same way, like she was not real. Just a thing to be bought. Used and thrown away. A voice shouted from behind the platform. Next buyer is human. The crowd grew quiet for a moment. Humans were rare here. Dangerous. Everyone had heard the stories. Humans didn't follow alien rules. They were strange. Some treated slaves worse than anyone else, and some were too kind, too soft. The kind ones didn't last long. She tried not to look up as footsteps echoed on the metal floor. A man stepped forward. He wasn't like the others. No armor, no strange clothes, just a long, dark coat, simple boots, and eyes that did not shine with hunger or hate. His eyes were quiet, deep, unreadable. He stared at her for a few seconds. Then he pulled out a card and handed it to the slaver. Full payment, he said. That was it. No question. No touch. No words to her. The slaver grinned. She's yours. Good luck with that one. Still bites. The girl stood still, frozen. She expected him to drag her, to slap her, to mark her like the others had done. Instead, he removed his coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. It was warm and smelled like smoke and leather. Follow, he said softly. She obeyed, not because she trusted him, but because it was better than being dragged again. Outside the auction hall, the cold night air hit her skin. She shivered, clutching the coat tighter. The man didn't speak. He led her to a small vehicle, opened the door, and waited. She sat inside slowly, careful not to show fear. As the vehicle moved, she stared at him from the corner of her eye. He didn't look at her, didn't smile, didn't speak. He just drove. Time passed in silence. They left the city, the bright lights fading behind them. Roads turned to dirt. Stars filled the sky. She wondered if he was taking her to some private place. Maybe a hidden cell. Maybe a place worse than the slave markets. Her body tensed. But he only asked one question. Are you hungry? She didn't answer. She didn't trust the question. He nodded once, like he understood her silence, and kept driving. After some time, they reached a small wooden cabin in the forest. It was quiet, peaceful. No other people, no cameras, no guards. He got out and walked to the door, opening it wide. She followed slowly, steps careful. Inside, the cabin was warm, clean, simple. There was a soft chair, a table with books, and a small fireplace. No chains, no cages. He pointed to a door. Your room. You can rest there. She stepped inside. It was a real room, a bed, a blanket, a window. On the bed, he had placed something small, a silver key. He spoke from the doorway. You can lock the door if you want. No one will come in. Then, he left. She stood there, holding the key, her fingers trembling. Why? Why would a human who bought her for pain give her warmth? Why would he offer a lock when he already owned her? She sat on the bed, still not removing the coat. For hours, she stared at the door, waiting for it to open, waiting for the screams, waiting for the hurt. But the night passed, and the door never moved. The room of silence. The sun rose slowly through the tall trees outside the cabin. Soft light touched the wooden walls. Birds sang, gentle and far away. She hadn't slept. The alien girl sat on the edge of the bed, the silver key still clutched in her hand. The coat he gave her was draped over her shoulders, and her eyes stayed fixed on the door, but nothing happened. No footsteps, no voice calling her, no pain. Her whole life had been rules, commands, punishment. Silence was never a good thing in the slave blocks. Silence meant something bad was coming, something sharp, something cold. But here, the silence was different. Too calm, too quiet, too confusing. She slowly unlocked the door and stepped out, bare feet on the wooden floor. She expected to see him standing there, waiting, holding a chain. But the hallway was empty. In the main room, she saw him sitting by the fire. He was drinking something from a cup, staring into the flames. The scent of food filled the air. Fresh, bread, herbs, something warm. He looked at her just once, then he pointed to the table. "Eat if you want," he said. Nothing more. She didn't move. Was this a trick? Was this kindness before cruelty? She stood still, heart pounding. He didn't push her. He didn't order her. He didn't even watch her for long. He just turned back to the fire. She waited 5 long minutes. 10. Still nothing happened. Slowly her body moved, 1 step, then another. Her hand reached for the bread, fingers shaking. She bit into it. Warm, soft, not poisoned, and for the first time in years, it tasted like hope. He didn't speak as she ate, didn't question her, didn't laugh. When she was done, he simply took her plate, washed it, and gave her a nod. Then he walked to the door and stepped outside. She watched from the window. He went into the woods behind the cabin carrying a small axe. He chopped firewood for over an hour. She didn't understand. Why buy her just to ignore her? Why give her food, a room, a key, and not use her? Was he waiting for something? Was this a test? The next few days passed like that. Quiet, confusing, strange. Every morning, he cooked. Every evening, he read by the fire. And every night, he locked himself in his own room. She wandered the cabin like a ghost, unsure, alert. But each time she made a mistake and dropping a cup, walking too loud, and he never shouted, never hit, never touched. One day she sat in front of him by the fire. He looked at her for a long moment, then handed her a book. "You can learn to read," he said. "Start with this." She blinked. "Why?" He shrugged. "Because you can." She stared at the pages, the symbols, the shapes. No one had ever given her a choice before. She opened the book slowly, turned 1 page, then another. He smiled, just a little, and returned to his own book. But inside her, something strange stirred. A question. Was this human not a master? Was he something else? That night she stood outside his room, heart racing. She had to know. She opened the door. He was asleep, fully dressed. On top of the bed, a blanket tossed aside. His arms were covered in scars. Deep ones, old ones, human wounds. Next to him on a table were photos, not of war, not of slaves, but of children. Alien children smiling, and in the middle of them, her, younger, thinner, sadder. She stepped back in shock. He had known her before. Her foot hit a glass by accident. It fell and shattered. He opened his eyes instantly. She froze. He stood up, not angry, not shouting, just watching her. His voice was soft. "You were at the Kasari mines, weren't you?" She nodded slowly. "I was there too. We never spoke, but I remembered your face." Her voice trembled. "Why, did you buy me?" He stared at the floor for a moment. Then he whispered, "Because no one else would save you." The rules he never made. The next morning she woke up before the sun, not because someone shouted at her, not because of chains clinking or boots stomping outside her door, but because for the first time in her life, she had slept through the night, and nothing had hurt her. She sat on the bed for a long time, staring at the window, confused by the silence in her chest. The fear was still there, deep inside her bones. but it was fading, softening, like smoke after a storm. She opened the door slowly. He was in the kitchen again, pouring hot water into 2 cups. His back was turned, but as if he had eyes behind his head, he spoke. "Morning." She flinched. The voice was not loud, not sharp, but her heart still jumped from the memory of voices that had once come with pain. "You can sit," he said, placing 1 cup across the table. She walked slowly, her bare feet brushing the wooden floor. When she sat, he pushed the cup toward her. "Tea, not too hot." She stared at it. The smell was sweet, gentle. It reminded her of something she never had, a home. He watched her, then leaned forward. "I need to say something," he said. "There are no rules here, not for you." Her eyes narrowed. "No rules?" He nodded. "No, orders. No punishments, no collars. You're free to stay or leave." The word leave hit her like a storm. She had never been given a choice. "You're lying," she whispered. He didn't flinch. "I'm not." "But you bought me." "Yes." "So, you own me." He shook his head slowly. "I paid for your freedom, not for your body, not for your pain. I saw what they were about to do to you, and I couldn't walk away." She stared at him. Her voice cracked. "Why?" he answered without blinking. "Because once, someone saved me, and I never got to repay them." The silence in the room grew, heavy. Then she asked the question that had been burning inside her since the first day. "What do you want from me?" He leaned back, folded his arms, and looked her in the eyes. "I want you to want something for yourself." The days that followed were strange. Each one felt like walking through a dream. No beatings, no orders, no threats. She began to walk around the cabin more freely. The fear didn't leave her, but it loosened. Like an old skin she no longer needed. One afternoon, she was washing a cup when it slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. Instantly, her body froze. Her hands covered her head. Her knees hit the ground. She was bracing for the pain, but it never came. Instead, she heard soft footsteps, then a broom. He swept the pieces gently without a word. When she looked up at him, confused, he only said, "Everyone drops things." She blinked. "You're not angry?" He smiled faintly. "Why would I be?" She couldn't answer. She didn't know why. Only that all her life, broken things led to broken bones. As time passed, she began to speak more, ask more, laugh even. Though it startled her every time. She learned how to cook small meals, how to make tea. She asked about the trees, the birds, the stars, and he always answered. Patiently, kindly, never looking at her like a slave. One evening, while watching the fire, she finally asked the question again. "Why me?" He stared at the flames. His voice was low. "Because when I looked at you on that auction block, I saw myself." "You?" He nodded. "I was a prisoner once, not like you, but broken in a different way. Someone pulled me out before it was too late." "Who?" He was quiet for a long time, then he whispered, "My wife." The room fell silent. "Where is she now?" the girl asked softly. His eyes didn't blink. "Gone. Years ago." The fire cracked, throwing shadows across his face. She always said, "When you see someone drowning, don't just watch, jump in." He looked at the girl then. "You were drowning." That night the girl locked her door again, but not from fear, from something else. Confusion. Warmth. Something new. She stared at the ceiling for hours. The rules she had lived by: obey or suffer, speak and be punished, move and be hurt, didn't work here. He had not made new rules. He had broken all the old ones, and now she had to decide what to do with her own heart. The scarred past. It happened on a cold, quiet morning. The fire had gone out during the night. Frost crept along the cabin windows. The girl stepped out of her room, pulling his coat tighter around her. The human wasn't in the main room. The air was still. But something felt wrong. She found him outside, kneeling near the firewood pile, staring at the axe in his hands. His face was blank, his eyes far away. She took a slow step forward. "You're not chopping today?" she asked. He didn't move. "You okay?" He looked at her then, and for the first time she saw it. Not just silence in his eyes, but pain. Deep pain. Buried pain. "I remembered something," he said. She sat on the steps, waiting. A sound. From the mines. Screams. Small ones. She flinched. He continued. "You were one of them, weren't you? The small ones. The ones they kept in the lower cells." She nodded slowly. "I remember. I heard you scream. And I ran." He gripped the axe tighter. "I didn't look back, I just ran." She didn't speak, didn't blame him. She had seen that fear before, in many eyes. "I never forgave myself," he whispered. Then suddenly he slammed the axe into the log, hard. Once. Twice. Again, wood cracked. Splinters flew. She stood quietly, watching. Then she did something she never thought she would do. She took off the coat. She turned around, and she lifted her shirt, just enough to show her back. The scars were deep, long. Some healed, some never did. He froze. His breath caught. She didn't cry. She had no tears left for those days, but she said one word. "They did this." He closed his eyes, fists clenched, then he whispered, "I know." That night she found him in the kitchen, staring at a screen. Military news. Quiet, coded messages. She didn't understand all of it, but she saw a name. Slave ship. Iron Harvest. It was the same ship that brought her to the auction. She pointed to it. "That's the one." He nodded. "I tracked them. They've been selling across 5 systems. Untouchable because they bribe every planet they visit." "What will you do?" He looked at her. Not cold, not cruel, just certain. "Burn it." Her breath caught. You mean to destroy it?" He nodded. "It's not enough to rescue one. Not anymore." She stared at him, heart pounding. "What if they find you? What if they kill you?" He didn't answer. Instead, he tapped the screen. Coordinates appeared, movement paths, weak spots. He had planned this for a long time, not just for her, for all of them. 2 days later, he disappeared. Left before sunrise. No goodbye. Just a small note. "Stay safe. Don't wait for me." She read it 5 times, then folded it and placed it near the fire. The silence in the cabin was heavy, not peaceful, not calm. This time it felt like fear. Not for herself, but for him. The night sky lit up 3 days later, a flash. Far off, above the tree line. Then another. A roar echoed like thunder across the forest. The news channels reported it that evening. Slave. Ship Iron Harvest destroyed mid-flight. No survivors. Unknown attacker. Her heart stopped. No survivors. She dropped to the floor. But before the panic took her, the cabin door creaked open. He stepped in, covered in ash, smoke on his clothes, a burn on his shoulder, but alive. He looked at her, eyes tired, voice quiet. One less slaver ship in the stars. She ran to him, not with fear, but with something close to gratitude. No chains, no lies, just the truth. And the man who had once run away had come back. That night she sat by the fire staring at him. He was reading again like nothing had happened. But she knew better now. He was not just a kind man. Not just a quiet man. He was someone who carried pain. Who hid rage beneath calm. Someone who didn't speak of revenge, but acted when no one else would. And for the first time she felt something deep in her chest. Not fear, not confusion, but safety. The kind she never believed was real. The visitor. The storm came before dawn. The wind howled through the forest, rattling the cabin walls. Trees bent. Leaves flew like sharp whispers in the dark. The girl stood by the window, watching the sky turn gray. He was outside, as always, gathering wood. Even in the storm. She wanted to call him in. But something stopped her. A feeling. A chill that had nothing to do with the cold. And then, a shadow moved through the trees. Not his. Bigger. Faster. She stepped back. The door burst open. He entered quickly, carrying the last bundle of wood, soaking wet. But his eyes were calm, focused. He looked at her once, then to the window. "You saw it too," he said. She nodded. "Someone's coming." They didn't speak for the next few hours. He packed quietly. Not food, not clothes. Weapons. She didn't even know he had weapons. Old, human tech, silent and deadly. A knife with a glowing edge. A strange pistol that hummed when he touched it. She watched him move like he had done this before, like the kindness he wore every day was just a layer. Beneath it lived something else. Someone else. The knock came just after nightfall. A slow, heavy knock, 3 times. She stood behind him as he opened the door. The figure on the porch was tall, wrapped in a black travel cloak soaked from the rain. A female. Not human. Her eyes glowed yellow. Her skin was pale blue with sharp marks along the jaw, a sign of high birth in the old slave empire. She did not ask to come in. She walked in on her own. Her boots were clean underneath the mud, a sign that she'd used flight for most of her travel. The girl stepped back. Something about the visitor made her chest tighten. The visitor turned her head slowly and smiled. "You're the one who was taken," she said to the girl. "They said you were weak, broken." The girl didn't answer. "And yet you're still breathing." Curious. The human stood between them now, his voice steady. "Why are you here?" The visitor laughed softly, not out of joy, but out of power. "You stole from us," she said. He said nothing. "You burned one of our ships. You killed commanders. You broke contracts. Do you think there won't be consequences?" The girl stepped closer to the man. The visitor noticed. "Ah," she said. "So this is more than kindness." Her smile twisted. "You've claimed her. She is not property," he said firmly. "But she was," the visitor replied. "And, by law, she still is." He didn't flinch. "Then your law is broken." The visitor's hand moved. From her cloak she drew a blade. Ancient. Ceremonial. The girl gasped. The human didn't move. "You can't protect her forever," the visitor said. "I don't have to," he answered. "Just right now." The blade flashed. The visitor moved fast, lunging at the girl. But faster than thought, the human stepped in, grabbing her wrist mid-swing. There was a moment of silence. Then, a sharp crack. He broke her arm clean. She dropped. The blade screamed. But he didn't stop. With 2 quick moves, he disarmed her completely and knocked her to the ground. She stared up, shocked. "You were a soldier once," she hissed. "I still am," he replied. The girl watched with wide eyes. He had never raised his voice, never showed violence. But now she saw it. He was dangerous, not cruel, not wild, but controlled, lethal. And he had used that strength, not to hurt her, but to protect her. He tied the visitor's hands and dropped her in the corner of the room. "You'll leave in the morning," he said, "and if you ever return, it won't end like this." She spat at him. He didn't even blink. Then he turned to the girl. She was still shaking. "Are you hurt?" he asked softly. She shook her head, then whispered, You didn't even hesitate." He knelt in front of her. "I never will." That night she sat near the fire, staring at the knife he had used, not with fear, with respect. She finally understood. He was not soft. He was not weak. He was a storm that had learned to live in peace. But when the winds rose, he remembered how to roar the gift. The visitor was gone by morning. He had untied her just before sunrise and gave her one warning. Leave now or never leave again. She didn't speak, didn't try to fight. She limped away into the woods, vanishing like a ghost swallowed by the mist. The girl stood at the doorway watching her disappear. Something had changed. Not in the forest, not in the cabin, but inside her. That day, he didn't say much. He cooked breakfast but didn't eat. He walked outside for hours, staring at the trees, hands behind his back. She wanted to ask him what was on his mind, but part of her was scared of the answer. He had fought for her, risked his life, broken a law that no one dared to challenge, and he didn't ask for thanks. He didn't expect anything in return. That silence was louder than any word she'd ever heard. Just before nightfall, he returned to the cabin with a small wooden box. He handed it to her without a word. "What is it?" she asked. "Open it," he said. Inside, she found papers, not ordinary papers, old, yellow, carefully folded. They were documents, written in human and alien script, birth records, citizen status, identity scrolls, and on the last page, a name, her name, not a slave number, not a barcode, not a brand, a real name, her real name. She looked at him, confused. "What is this?" He sat down slowly by the fire. "I found your homeworld's records," he said, "before they were destroyed, before the Empire erased your people." She clutched the papers tightly. "You searched for this?" He nodded. "I bought your freedom. But I wanted to give you something more." She looked at the name again. It felt strange, soft, almost unreal on her tongue. "This is who I was?" "No," he said gently. "This is who you are." She didn't know when the tears came. They slipped out slowly, silently. But they were not tears of fear. Not this time. They were tears of something she had never felt before. Belonging. For the first time, she saw herself not as a slave, not as property, not as someone to be bought or broken, but as a person, a name, a life. She whispered, "Why are you doing this?" He stared at the fire, eyes far away. "Because someone once gave me the same gift." "Your wife?" she asked. He nodded. "She gave me a name when I was lost. She told me I wasn't just what others called me." He paused. "After she died, I couldn't save anyone. I shut the world out. But then, I saw you." She sat down beside him. "You don't have to repay the past forever," she said quietly. He smiled, a sad smile. "I know. But sometimes, helping one's soul is enough." Later that night, she stood in front of a mirror with the paper in her hand. She said the name out loud. Then again, and again. It sounded strange, but it was hers. He had gone to sleep early, but left a note on the table. "You are not mine, but you're not alone." Those words burned deep into her chest. Not mine. Not alone. The next morning, she didn't wear the coat anymore. She wore her own clothes. Simple, stitched by hand, made by her. She cooked the breakfast, and when he came into the room, she smiled, a real smile, not forced, not practiced, just true. He raised an eyebrow. "Something new today?" "Everything," she said. They sat together that day, side by side in the sunlight. For the first time, the silence between them was full. Not empty, not dangerous, just peaceful. She looked at the papers again, then whispered, "I want to help others like me." He looked at her, nodded once, "Then let's start." The girl who chose to stay. She stood at the edge of the forest, the wind blowing through her hair. A small ship waited in the field behind her. A rescue group from a distant neutral system had arrived. They offered her safety, a new life, work, a place among survivors like her. She looked at the ship, then looked back at the cabin. He was sitting on the porch, repairing an old chair, acting like it was just another normal day. But she knew it wasn't. This was the day she had to decide. Freedom wasn't just papers. It wasn't just breaking chains. Freedom was choosing where you belong. Just 1 year ago, she would have begged for that ship. She would have crawled to it, screamed for it, traded anything for a chance to escape. But now, she wasn't a slave anymore. She had a name, a voice, a reason to stay. She walked back to the cabin, slowly, step by step. He didn't look up when she reached the porch. He kept working. On the chair. "They're waiting," he said quietly. "I know. They'll take you wherever you want. New world. New job. No danger." She nodded. "I know." He stopped working. For the first time in days, he looked into her eyes. "You don't owe me anything." "I'm not staying because I owe you," she said. "Then why?" She took a deep breath. "Because I choose this." She sat down beside him, not as a prisoner, not as a child who needed saving, but as someone who had seen the worst parts of the universe and still wanted to live, not survive, live. He didn't speak for a long time, just handed her a brush and some paint. "This chair's old, needs new color," he said. She dipped the brush. "What color?" "You choose." She smiled. "Green, like the forest." He nodded. "Good choice." Weeks passed. The rescue ship left without her. Others came. Some stayed, some didn't. She started growing things in the garden. She built a table, helped fix the roof. Then she asked him to teach her how to fight. Not to hurt, but to protect. And he did. They trained in the woods every morning. Fast moves. Quiet steps. Control. The strength she once feared now flowed through her hands. One day they received a message on an old comms device. A hidden camp had been attacked. Slavers again. Children were missing. No one had acted. But she stood up. "We go," she said. He looked at her. "You sure?" "Yes. It'll be dangerous. So was my whole life. I'm not afraid anymore." They went. Together, they found the camp. They found the children. They brought them back. Every single one. The stories spread. Whispers in back alleys, in spaceports, in shadows. A girl with scars and fire in her eyes. A silent human who never asked for thanks. They were no longer just survivors. They were protectors. Sometime later, a small alien girl, skinny, quiet, afraid, arrived at their door. She didn't speak, just held up her arm, branded, shaking. The girl opened the door wide. "You're safe now," she said. "Come in." That night, she sat by the fire, the small girl asleep in her lap. He poured 2 cups of tea. "You still glad you stayed?" he asked. She looked around, at the cabin, at the stars outside, at the child resting beside her. "Every day," she whispered. "You could have had anything." "I have everything." He smiled. "You were meant for more than pain." She nodded. "So are they. All of them. We just need to show them." And so, the girl who was once sold for pain became the light that broke the darkness. She didn't just find freedom. She became freedom for others, for herself, and for a galaxy that had forgotten what kindness looked like. End.